The story is the early period of Gandhi's life in South Africa, where he went out as a lawyer, and his decision to take on this injustice. Gandhi's Satyagraha movement was about people taking responsibility for themselves and their cause. Our main intention was to stage the whole opera to the idea of people working together. So a lot of the images are created by ensembles of people, groups of people, to create visual spectacle, but through very human means.
Philip Glass composed Satyagraha, which had its debut in 1980. Last year, director Phelim McDermott and set designer Julian Crouch put together an ingenious new production of the opera for London audiences. It has its premiere at the Met on April 11th. The imaginative restaging features a full chorus, video projections, and improvisational puppetry by a small ensemble of movement performers.
And we're a sort of motley bunch of differently skilled performers. We have sort of some traditional acting skills, and we have aerialists, stilt performers. Probably the thing that unites us the most in this is the sort of manipulation of objects, which sometimes tips over into puppetry and other times is just manipulating materials, mainly newspaper.
Newspaper is used throughout the opera in a variety of inventive ways. Including as the basis for a series of large puppets that represent the oppression of minorities in South Africa.
They're sort of meant to be slightly grotesque and slightly foolish, but in some ways they sort of veer into the comical. When you look at them, they do look like they ought to be thrown in the trash.
We decided we wanted to use very humble materials in the making of the opera as well. So mostly you'll see baskets and newspaper and corrugated iron. And we wanted to similarly take these materials maybe associated with poverty and see if we could do a kind of alchemy with that, turn them into something beautiful. I think we try and take newspaper on a little journey during the show.
The newspaper props are largely inspired by Gandhi's use of the media to promote his message.
Gandhi himself did publish a newspaper called Indian Opinion.
One of the ideas of the opera is that there are some historical events that are meditated upon. Each of the scenes is like a meditation on a moment in time. So these big puppets are like mythical warriors or figures from the Bhagavad Gita. And the Bhagavad Gita was a very important book to Gandhi. So in the opera, the beginning of the opera, he sees a parallel between his own challenge and his own story in this mythical story. So the puppetry and the images that the skills ensemble make are manifestations of this mythical level and the mythical scale of that story.
The libretto draws from the text of the Bhagavad Gita and is sung in the original Sanskrit, but there are no subtitles for the audience.
We made a decision that because the piece was this meditation, rather than a thing that takes you out of the experience, it's not like there's a story that you have to follow, and the opera itself isn't even in linear chronological order. So putting the text within the piece itself is kind of saying, think of these texts as you would if you were looking at the Bhagavad Gita and you were contemplating it and praying.